I like how we're all just like getting down with the beat of the intro. And what a beautiful intro. What a beautiful Saturday morning. Welcome back to Conversations with Mother. How are you doing this morning? I'm here. I'm Blake. Sorry. Yeah, see, not enough coffee yet.
Mother Michelle.
Mother Michelle here with Mother Michelle. How are you this morning?
I'm good. I had an epiphany this morning because I started to have anxiety before the episode.
Oh.
And I was like, oh, it's because we're talking about hard stuff.
Oh God, yeah.
And I'm getting over it, but I'm still waiting for the haters to be like hating.
Oh, of course.
So
give it time.
I know.
Give it time. You know what? If
I have my family, but you know, if anybody else hates me, it's fine.
But if any episode's gonna do it, it's gonna be today's episode.
That's why I was like,
no, that's totally like anytime that you're putting yourself out there to the public, it's a valid thing. I remember doing that when I started the last podcast, the Everything Vaguely Paranormal podcast. I was like, oh, what's everybody thing, man? And now I'm just like, fuck it.
Yep, I don't care
I don't care anymore.
I don't care. I think it's also age. Like it comes with age. I'm old enough that I'm like,
comes with the territory.
Sorry, you don't like me.
Yeah. Well, today's episode is called When You Finally Start Becoming Yourself. Coming out, changing, and the truths that find us. And I feel like this is one of those episodes where the title sounds kind of gentle, but then you realize it's carrying like a suitcase, 3 journals, and your entire genealogical family tree.
Right? That feels super accurate. Like this topic definitely has a lot of luggage.
Emotional baggage, but make it a carry-on.
Except it never fits in the overhead bin, ever.
Never. Somebody is always like trying to shove it aggressively in there, and just everybody's just watching them. Just like, what are they doing?
Or they're like,
or they're look away. Look away.
Look away. They don't need help. And I'm like 5'3", like,
yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Crushed under the weight of it.
Yeah. That's basically family systems though. Like everybody has a role to play. Uh-huh. I'm not paying attention. I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
Put it under the rug. And
but really today we're talking about coming out. And yes, coming out as queer, but also coming out in a much broader sense. Coming out as the person you are becoming after years of being who everyone needed you to be.
Yeah.
The eye roll.
I know. Because now it's time to be who I need for myself. And I think that's where we want to start, right? So because coming out is not always like this just one announcement. And sometimes it's not even words at first. It's just, it starts as a feeling.
More than a feeling.
I know. Why were we singing
We were
that?
just singing that this morning. Sorry, go ahead.
Because, but it can just be a feeling like something's off, some kind of discomfort, some kind of like longing for something more. That little truth that's like, hello, I'm here. I know you're busy, but we're going to talk about this whether you like it or not.
That damn truth has like no respect for any timing.
None. It'll show up when you're trying to fold laundry in the middle of a relationship, a spiritual experience. You're like meditating. You're like, oh shit, there it is. Or maybe even after a family conflict during a drag show. Always perfect timing. In therapy, that's appropriate place for it. In a book, reading something, and it just kind of comes out, or when you're staring at your ceiling at 2 o'clock in the morning.
Oh God, my ceiling knows way too fucking much. It knows way too fucking much.
That ceiling has heard everything. If walls could talk, man. But that's like what I mean, or what we mean by the truths that find us. So sometimes we go looking for ourselves. And sometimes the truth finds us before we're ready to know what it means.
Well, I feel like for me, coming out has not been one thing.
Yeah.
Coming out as gay was the first big chapter. But then there were other chapters: spirituality, drag, mediumship, gender.
Yeah.
Ironically, in that order. It's been this ongoing process of discovering parts of myself, accepting them, and then deciding how visible I can be with them.
Yeah, and I think like that's what makes the conversation so important is a lot of people think like coming out is like one door. You open it, you say the thing,
Mm-hmm.
everyone reacts, and then you just sashay on out. But I don't think it works neatly for most people.
Nope, not at all.
I think coming out is more like a house with a lot of rooms. You open one door and then later you realize there's another one, and some doors are locked, some stick. Some have old family rules nailed across them. Some have religious shame standing in front of them with a clipboard.
Religious shame would have a fucking clipboard.
It's one of those old wooden ones, you know?
It's got like all the highlighted verses
Oh,
on
God.
it.
And
Indexed.
Yeah, and no snacks.
Oh God, sinister.
Or maybe they just have those little bread wafers
Oh God.
that you're like eating and you're like,
And then you need something to drink and they have nothing to drink.
yes.
It's like trying to eat a whole
They're like,
homemade
here's your
biscuit.
grape juice.
It's like homemade biscuit with
Yes.
no water.
Absolutely. But that's the conversation today, right? So not just like how did we come out, but what parts of us had to wait for the safety of coming out.
Yeah.
What parts of us were hidden because the systems around us didn't make any kind of room for it. And what parts of us are finally asking to be known. And what do we do when the truth finds us?
Well, and we want to name early that we're using coming out in a broad way, but we're not trying to take it away from queerness at all. Because queer coming out is very specific.
Mhm.
I mean, it matters. It has history behind it. It has risk. It has a lot of beauty to it as well. That grief, relief, community, fear, pride. There's a lot to it.
Exactly. And, you know, like coming out as queer matters big time.
Mhm.
Whether you're coming out as gay, lesbian, bisexual, pansexual, asexual, trans, non-binary, genderqueer, gender fluid, Mahu, two-spirit, questioning, or any other identity under this beautiful and complicated rainbow and umbrella, it matters, right? And queer coming out should not be flattened into just a metaphor for personal growth.
Mm.
But I also think queer experiences teach us that there's something deeply human about visibility and who we are. Because coming out is often the moment when the edited version of us can no longer hold the whole truth.
The edited version runs out of storage.
Yep. And the system says, please delete those files to continue.
Well, the truth is like, I am the file.
Right. It's all me. And sometimes the truth is I'm queer. I'm genderqueer. I'm spiritual in a way that my family and my religion may not understand.
Mhm.
And sometimes it's not, I'm just a mother. I'm also a person with wants, needs, desire, curiosity, sexuality, anger, rest, creativity, and a future. And sometimes we have these moments where it's like, I can't stay in a relationship where I have to disappear to be loved. I don't believe what I was taught to believe anymore. It contradicts itself. Sometimes it's, I really want more than this. And sometimes it's even quieter. Sometimes it's just, I don't think this fits anymore.
That resonates. Because not every coming out begins with certainty.
No. You know, sometimes it begins with a lot of discomfort. Yay. What is this feeling that I'm feeling? Or it can even be like envy. I can remember watching people like just live life out loud and longing for that, you know, that feeling of recognition.
Mm-hmm.
And then your body, sometimes it's just your body like relaxing and just thinking, oh, well, this feels more like me. And then immediately panicking because that would require a lot of things to change.
The body says yes, and the brain calls the emergency meeting.
Right. And everybody is in the conference room around that table, and nobody brought a pen or anything to write on. But that's why I think like what we're talking about matters, right? Because becoming yourself is not always this like clean, perfect version. Nobody knows how to. There's no pamphlet that's like, here you go. This is how you become who you are on your own.
Your 12-step program.
Yes, it's not linear. It's not always joyful at first. It's a lot of stuff. Sometimes it's the first feeling can be fear. Sometimes it's grief, that recognition of you're going to have to let a lot of things go. And sometimes that first feeling is, now that I know this, I can't unknow this now. Which brings me to you, because I want to start with like your first big coming out story, if that feels okay. Because you were young.
No, I was totally young. Yeah. I was 13 when I first came out. It was so I grew up in a when I say religious family, like I don't want to say religious as in like so structured.
Grandma's but putting on a hat to go to church every Sunday.
Right, yeah, it wasn't like that, but it's like I grew up in a religious community. The language was woven into everyday life. We didn't attend church every single Sunday or every Wednesday or whatever day they thought we needed to go. It was most Sundays, definitely the holidays type stuff, but it was just woven into everyday life. It was in the culture. It was in the way people talked, the way they moved, what was considered good, what was considered bad, normal, not normal. My favorite is saved and lost.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing. Because it's my greatest fear at first was not even knowing like how my family would react. It was that I in myself believed that I was lost. That it was this internalized message that basically all gay people were condemned and separated from God and destined for broken lives and abandoned and just flat out wrong. So before I even was able to come out to anyone else, like I had to sit with that at 13, thinking that something was spiritually wrong with me.
Yeah. And I feel like that word lost, it feels important, right? So, and that's so heavy for a child because I mean, at 13, you're a child, and to be 13 and not only asking, will my family love me, but also, am I separated from God now? And am I broken? Am I condemned?
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, looking back at it, like I had known I was different for years. I mean, when I say years, I'm talking like years. Like I gravitated towards all those things that were like considered femme where I grew up. Now I understand that those things gender doesn't apply to any of that type of stuff. But at the time and where I lived, everything was categorized. It was, this is for the boys and the boys do this and they wear camo and they go hunt and they work on the farm. And this is for the girls. It's pink and frilly. And, and I was like, I want pink and frilly over there, and it's like this over here with the boys, this is acceptable. And this over here means that something is inherently wrong with you. Oh, yeah, that was the first kind of sitting with all of that at 13.
I know. But I feel like that's where like systems play a role so clearly because children are not born believing colors, toys, emotions, like any kind of interest, clothes, softness. Why can't you be soft? Creativity or expression belongs to like one gender. But they're taught that, and then the system acts like the teaching is natural. Like you said, it's a part of like every day. I feel like it's the Midwest experience where it's just kind of Southern Midwest experience of like just everything revolves around Christianity, whether it's and they're like out drinking and in jail on the weekends, but it's like, I'm going to go see my mama at church this weekend. It's all going to be better.
Well, I mean, exactly. Exactly. I mean, that growing up in that environment from a young age and having church and God and religion thrown in my face so heavily.
Yeah.
You know, it's one of those things that it just brought up a lot of questions later on in life. There was, I would say that's probably the first trauma that I had to work through. There was a lot of trauma centered around that. But my first experience in coming out was, like I said, I was 13. And once I had kind of sat with that fear for a little bit, I was like, you know what, screw it. I'm just going to tell somebody. And so I told my older brother first. He was the first one to tell. And I didn't even come out as gay at that point. I came out as bi.
Oh.
To soften the blow.
Yeah.
You know, because my older brother was All-American Mr. Football. And I'm over here like, I want to play in the band and I want to be in the air conditioning and I don't want to do 2-a-day practices and screw that crap, you know. But then a year later, so I sat with that for a year. And then a year later, I came out to my mom. And then shortly after that, it was my grandparents. It was a wonderful coming out situation of how I told them I was gay, you know, which I don't want to paint them in a bad light because they've done a lot of work, a lot of self-reflect, a lot of deconstruction, a lot of reconstruction, which we're going to be talking about later, actually. And I'm very proud of them for that. But at the time, like their mindset was very negative on some things. Yeah. And so when I got asked to the prom by a Black lady, they told me, absolutely not. You are not going because of that.
Yeah.
And I remember the line was, what do you think the world's going to think of you when you walk into the prom with a Black girl on your arm? And I said, I don't give a fuck what the world thinks about me because I'm gay. I actually screamed it at them.
Oh, good for you.
And I got up and walked out. That was my coming out story. But, you know, and that wasn't received very well. You know, I mean, my grandmother immediately bust into my room and she's like, hug me. Like, it's okay. You know, like I've known for a while. My grandfather didn't look at me for like 2 weeks, you know, so it was one of those things and it took some time. But he eventually became one of those people that his own sister would send him Bible verses and go, you need to read these to Blake. In the mail with like handwritten letters about like how I should be saved and all that stuff.
Must be exercised.
Yeah. And so he would open them and sit at the kitchen table and the literal Bible pages, he would rip them apart, put them back in the envelope and hit return
Good
to
for
sender.
him. Good for him.
And he even stood up to her and was like, don't ever tell me how to fucking raise my grandchild.
That's awesome.
Like that's my grandson. So it's like when I said my coming out was basically their start of their deconstruction.
Yeah.
Holy crap, their world completely changed. And they broke down a lot of those mentality that they themselves were brought up with.
What a catalyst.
Oh, yeah. It's like, I came out as gay, and now your whole worldview changes. My grandmother quit church because I was in such a small community that the fact was I came out, it got out at school. I was out to the whole school. And this is all within a week's time. So by the time next Sunday rolled around, the church service was all about homosexuality.
Oh no.
And homosexuality, not homophobia, but homosexuality in the Bible and how it was wrong and they're going to be condemned. And that was like the main sermon. And then my grandmother went to Sunday school and they were still talking about it there. And she's like in the middle of it, like slams her Bible and was like, I know what y'all are doing here. She's like, and I'm not going to be part of any fucking of it. She was like, y'all have a good day, and turned around and walked out and she never went back.
I love that.
Like, so I had very supportive grandparents in the end, and I completely rocked their worldview just by coming out. So, but yeah, that was what I had to sit with, and that was the first coming out as gay. Pretty massive.
I know, but afterwards, what did it feel like?
It felt like freedom. Like, I mean, there was freedom, but it also was not. But it's like also I wasn't just suddenly out everywhere. I think people imagine that once your family knows, like that's it.
Yeah.
But then navigating as a young teen, like every new relationship, every new person, every new space still has that question of like, do I say something? Am I safe here? Will this change how they see me? Will this become the only thing that they see? Even at 37, there's still some of those questions whenever you walk into different situations. So yeah, but it felt like freedom, big time.
I feel like that's a really important piece. Like coming out is not just like one conversation. And I hate to say this, it becomes a repeated calculation of, am I safe?
Yeah. Yeah. It's my family. So my family did sometimes have conversations like on my behalf with other relatives for me, because there was stuff that I was like, I'm not coming out to them. I'm too fucking scared. Either I'm too fucking scared of what their reaction is going to be, or they don't deserve, you know, the right to know. So In some ways, that made it easier, but I still had to like keep deciding. And every new room literally has its own risk.
And I think that's the part that like we miss sometimes as people, you know, coming out is not just like an identity, it's nervous system math, where who is safe, who has power, who might reject me, who might tell somebody else, who might make this dangerous for me, and who might love me better when they actually know. And not everyone gets the same safety in that math as a white queer person, a Black queer person, a Native queer person, a queer person in a rural community, or a queer person with disabilities, a trans person, an immigrant queer person, a queer person in a religious or conservative family. Those stories are not all the same. And I'm never going to speak for every story. I'm only speaking my experience, and I'm going to refuse to make just one story the default story.
Oh, absolutely. Well, I mean, and that's what feels important about it is that because coming out has never just been personal. It's always been shaped by where you live, what you were taught, who has the power, and what the cost might be. And sometimes it is those relationships. That was the biggest fear of coming out to one of my aunts, was that she wouldn't let me be around her daughter. And come to find out, her daughter is queer now, and she had a gay best friend like long time ago. You know, she was like, "Why were you afraid to come out with me?" I was like, "I don't know." She's like, "I love the gays," you know.
I love it.
Shout out Aunt Rhonda.
I know. I love the gays too. I can't help it. Oh, they're more fun.
Sure. But I want to turn all this toward you now, because you also have had multiple coming out moments in your life, not all at once, you know, not all in the same way, but definitely more than one.
Yeah. And I think like that's why I got nervous, right? This episode feels really personal to me. Because I came out as queer. I came out like I was young. I was literally young. I was working someplace that I probably shouldn't have worked. Doing things I probably shouldn't have. And I was getting dressed for work, and my mom, I don't know, she said something, and I just turned around and was like, I really like this girl that I liked at the time. And she was like, and I was like, no, like I like her. And it was just kind of, I didn't have like, it wasn't a big reaction. It was just like, okay. And then we just moved on, you know? And I think all of that like matters, but I was like 15, 16. Actually, no, I wasn't 13. I was like 15, 16. Because like I said, I was working somewhere I shouldn't have been working. But that's not the only time I had to come out and be honest about who I was. And I feel like for my family, it was kind of just, I have the opposite. Like if we just ignore it and don't talk about it, like it doesn't exist, right? So when I came out as ethically non-monogamous, and I left a career in medicine after almost 2 decades to become a trauma-informed therapist, go back to school and do all of those fun things. And then I developed a spiritual practice outside of the religion that I was raised around, because it wasn't like every day like hours. I think I was more involved in Catholicism up to the age of 16 than you were, because I went to school, I was confirmed and all that stuff in the church. But I started naming all the systems around me that made me abandon myself. And I walked away from relationships, including biological family relationships, where staying connected to them required me to stay small and to stay quiet. And all of that is like, you know, it's like, it starts with one thing and it just comes into everything else. Like, it's like, to be who you are, it's like always this more coming out. Oh, and by the way, like I'm this. Oh, and by the way, I'm that. And it just feels so contradictory. It's like, why can't we just accept people for who they are?
Yeah.
That's really cool. Get curious, right? And none of it ever happens like overnight. And I didn't have like a dramatic movie scene where the music was swelled and suddenly I knew exactly who I was.
That'd be so nice.
Oh God, wouldn't it? And it was so slow. It was so messy. And it was me like slowly stopping the question of who do you need me to be?
Yep.
And slowly beginning to ask, who am I when I'm no longer only surviving? Because it started to really affect my health to just survive in that system.
Yeah. One that feels like the center of it all, though, is like who am I when I am no longer just surviving?
Right. And like I want to be really careful here, right? So especially when we talk about family, because the message is not leave your family and everything will be fine. That's not true. It's not simple. And I understand like it's not available to anybody. This is my experience. I don't claim to be perfect. I am so imperfect.
Yeah.
And I'm just in love with my imperfect self. And it's okay. You know, sometimes people can stay connected with family and still build healthier boundaries. But for me, removing myself from relationships that were built on manipulation and abuse, and I was always the scapegoat, and there was always emotional harm. It gave me room to grow in a way that I had not been able to grow before.
And that sounds, excuse me, that sounds like the plant metaphor that you talked about before.
Yeah. So sometimes a plant spends decades trying to grow in really poor soil. And after a while, the plant starts thinking, maybe I'm the problem. There's something wrong with me. Maybe I just don't know how to grow. I'm too much. I'm not enough. And sometimes the problem was never the plant. Sometimes the plant was just trying to survive in that soil where growth was not possible. And when I got into healthier soil and I left the abusive relationships and moved into healthier relationships, safer connections with others, and I had a more honest community and more room for spirituality, curiosity, queerness, creativity, and even rest, to be able to say like, hey, I need a break. I blossomed, and it's not perfect, and it wasn't magically, and it wasn't without grief, but I blossomed.
What does that feel like for you?
I laugh more. I create more. I feel safer in my body. I feel safer in my space. I trust my gut and my spirituality more. I let myself be curious. I want to be curious about everything. Yeah.
I'm curious about it all.
Yeah, right. And you get curious and you can explore all these things and experience all this joy without immediately waiting for somebody to judge you or some kind of punishment. And now I can express myself more honestly. I dream way bigger. I would have never done this ever. I would have never been in this space. But that's what I mean when I say growth is not always about becoming somebody new. It's just growth is like becoming more fully yourself because the conditions finally allow it.
That feels hopeful without pretending it was easy.
Right. And that's important because healing includes all the messy stuff. It includes grief. It can cost you relationships. People will leave. Sometimes you leave. And sometimes you realize that people only loved you or loved that version of you that had no boundaries. And sometimes you grieve the family that you wish you had, you know, and you grieve the years that you spent performing. And sometimes you grieve the version of yourself who thought staying small would eventually make you safe. And I think that that's the part where there's profound grief in realizing that love without safety is not actually love.
Yeah, that one needs room.
It does. Because love without safety is not actually love.
Yeah. Lived that one for quite a while.
Yeah.
We're letting that one marinate.
Right? It was a hard thing. That's a hard thing to realize, that like safety equals being able to feel love.
Yeah.
But that like moves me into another part of your story, because I want to know what made you feel safe, because you had another coming out like around paganism and Wicca and eventually mediumship.
Yeah. So it was shortly after like coming out at 13, around 15, 16, about the same time of your story now. It was my second boyfriend. I went through the first boyfriend, the puppy love phase, you know, and all that stuff. And then I got with the second guy. These two gentlemen I consider integral parts, important relationships in growing up. The first one being puppy love. We were together for only about a year or whatever, but and unfortunately he's since passed away. And then the second one was when I was about 15 or 16, and I was intrigued by this guy. He was about I think he was 2 years older than I or something like that. So he was about, I think I was 15, he was 16 or something like that. We were both teenagers.
Yeah.
Both under the age of 18. He drove a Camaro. So I was like, yes. So sexy. But he had this mystery about him because he wore all these like necklaces and jewelry and stuff and rings and everything that I was just like, you look like a bad boy. And I'm all about the bad boys. And but anyways, he was Wiccan and in paganism and stuff, and kind of introduced that to me. And I began to, which it led me to explore more. I got my first set of tarot cards. Like I started questioning more and more of the teachings that I was brought up in and the indoctrination that I had received as a child. And I don't know, it's that exploration to me felt like kind of coming home. Because I remember reading the Wiccan Rede and It Harm None, Do As Ye Will.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God. Like, I don't know. I just always believed that there was this greater design than just one God. You know, there's multiple, in my opinion, in my beliefs, there's multiple spiritual beings and multiple ways of understanding the divine, many layers to basically whatever this is that we're doing, the beautiness of it, you know. And I mean, the trees, the bugs, the cats, the dogs, the people, the humans, the birds, there's so much to it. And I just always felt like there was like this almost web design, if you will. And it wasn't, yes, I believe in, you know, a higher hierarchy, if you will, but that there's that one God. I always questioned that, you know. And so when I found paganism and Wicca, it was like a coming home of that.
And that makes sense with who you are now. But at the time, where you lived, was it safe to say that out loud?
Not really. No. I mean, all my friends at the time, they went to the same church that I did. You know, I don't think I had a friend whose parents or they themselves weren't in church.
Yeah.
You know, I constantly had friends at school asking to come to a Bible study and to do this and let's go to Bible camp and everything. And I was like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that because inside that doesn't sit right with me, because y'all are just going to preach at me that I'm going to hell. Like y'all are trying to get me there to convert me. I know what you're doing, you know, and it's not going to work, you know. But anything outside of Christianity, like where I lived, was often treated as devil's work.
Yeah.
You know, oh my God, people found out that I had tarot cards and a Ouija board. Like there was all of this fear.
Yeah.
And then it's like all of a sudden I'm receiving warnings about demons, warnings about psychics and mediums, and warnings about what the Bible says and all this kind of stuff. So I kept that part of myself very much more private than my sexuality for a long time. Coming out as gay was easier than coming out as Wiccan, which I mean, that's evolved in and of itself, Wiccan to other things now, but you know, I don't have the identification of Wiccan. it's rooted in paganism, but like oftentimes I could tell somebody was gay before I told them I was Wiccan,
Right.
So yeah.
I think that's like an important distinction in conversation, right? Because sometimes we're out in one way and we're so hidden in another.
Yes. Like I could be, like I just said, more open about being gay. It just felt like it was accepted easier
Yeah.
than it was, my spirituality, than I could about my spirituality. But then it was about, over the time, that all evolved. The Wiccan, the paganism, everything. I'm more of an elemental neo-paganism kind of now type thing. And I pull from many different belief systems. I have belief systems from Native Americans, from Egyptians, from paganism, from Celtic, and I just kind of pull it all together. Universalist, maybe? I don't know.
I don't know
what to label me anymore.
I'm not labeling it.
That. I'm not going to label it. But it was about 5 years ago when I helped start Everything Vaguely Paranormal, that all of that changed. Because I started meeting all of these people in the paranormal industry, including your psychics, your mediums, your readers for tarot, oracle, bone throwers. It was just interesting. And they were very open about like who they were and their experiences within this field. And it gave me that kind of permission within myself to start accepting these experiences that I had had throughout my life, but had never like really fully understood. Like I tell the story a lot of times, that the earliest one I can remember, sitting at my mom's house and she's across from me and I just like whip around like that. She's like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, somebody just walked in the room. She's like, "We're the only ones here." And I was like, "No, I don't care. Somebody just walked into the freaking room. Like, I don't know what to tell you." And then all of these weird experiences leading up to that. And then seeing my great grandmother 2 days after she passed away, at the foot of my bed, like that's a big one. So it gave me permission to start accepting those experiences. Like I stopped hiding that part of myself as much because I was having those conversations with those people. I became more comfortable publicly, a little more comfortable, not fully, but a little more comfortable identifying as a medium and accepting like those kind of gifts that comes with that. I just have had experiences that I can't explain. And I've had people validate for me in situations that I'm just like, okay, I don't know you.
I know.
But cool. How do I know your brother died in a car wreck? I have no idea who the hell you are. I just felt something across my chest and I was like, I have a tingly sensation right here. I think it's for you. And you're like, "Oh, my brother died in a car wreck. The fuck do I know that?"
Yeah.
So anyways, that's meeting those people made it easier to accept.
But I love that though, because this is my big thing, right? Because it shows how community changes what we can admit to ourselves. Yeah. And sometimes you need to see someone else living openly before your own truth feels survivable.
Absolutely. Because for me, it was this, I am not the only one. This is not just something strange happening to me. Like there's a whole language for this.
Yeah.
There are people who understand this. And I think in some ways, had I had more, which then we could do a whole effing episode over this, but if we had more, if I had more representation in culture and media and all that kind of stuff growing up, I think it would have been even easier then for me to still come out as gay.
Yeah.
So seeing those people and meeting them and talking to them, sharing their experiences, it was like, you get me.
Yeah. Right.
You get me.
Right. And I think like that's like our spirituality matters in this podcast too, right? Because both of us are psychic mediums, confirmed in many different ways with many different things, and we will still deny it.
Yeah.
Even though Tyler and I will be 20 miles away from you and we're having a conversation and literally you pop up with the same subject matter on text. And I'm like, bitch, what?
Yeah.
But we're deeply spiritual and, we both care about intuition, energy, spirit, ancestors, dreams, signs, anything that's like unseen to other people. and connecting to our higher selves. And we're
Yeah.
always learning, and we're not trying to act like we have all the answers. We're trying to stay in relationship with mystery.
That feels right. Relationship with mystery.
Right?
As I sip my teacup for myself with my pinky up.
And that's all about, like, that's another like part of coming out. And I hate that part was like so much harder.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just, I get it. Because it was denied for me for so long.
Yeah.
It was just like, well, no, you know. And I questioned myself. Like, I
Question my sanity.
Yep. I
my
questioned my
God.
sanity.
Yeah.
And, you know, speaking of that, I want to always keep that inclusive, because like not everybody listening will understand our language. And some people will not call it spirit, and some people will not call it energy. Some people call it intuition, or even prayer. You know, intention is a big thing. Culture, ancestors, nature, that gut feeling, our nervous system. Our nervous system is very, very intuitive.
Mm-hmm.
And that's that inner wisdom, or just like a quiet knowing. And that's okay. The language doesn't have to be the same for every experience to matter.
Well, then it all connects back to labels again. It's like words help, but they're not the whole thing.
I know.
You know.
A word, it can be a doorway, but it should not become a locked room. And I think that spiritual coming out can be especially tender, because religion, colonization, family history, and culture, it's so wrapped up in each other, right? And for Native and Indigenous people, spirituality is tied to land, it's tied to ceremony, it's tied to ancestors and language and survival through colonization. And for many BIPOC communities, religious and spiritual life can be tied to culture, resistance, family, music, grief, joy, and survival. And for queer and trans people, religion can be both a place of deep harm, and for some, a place that they can reclaim in very, very affirming ways. So again, we can't flatten the queerness of this, right? And we can't speak for every story, but we can make room for the fact that spirituality in and of itself can be a wound, a homecoming, a language, a lineage, and a question, or all of those at once. And it usually comes with and or after coming out.
Well, it feels really important, because my paganism felt like coming home, but it also came with a lot of fear because of the system that I was in.
Right. And that's a tension, right? Sometimes something can feel like home inside of you, and it still feels so dangerous for the outside.
Yeah.
Also, I have to bring her up.
Okay.
I want to talk about Alexis Rain, because that, I feel like that's a really important part about you becoming.
Oh God, she is. I mean, she is. I do talk about her in the third person, but it's my drag persona. You know, she is extremely important in the journey of my life. I started doing drag at 18. And I went to my hometown had a little gay bar called Decisions.
Were made.
Yeah, decisions were made. And I remember going in there and just seeing this drag show take place. And I'll never forget, it was a queen named Midnight. She was on stage. She was performing. She has since passed. And then after her was Grandma Porky. And she is also since passed, but Grandma Porky was a show director of Decisions. And I remember walking in there and for the first time seeing a drag show. And I'm a former theater kid.
Yeah.
And I had just graduated, and I was looking and itching for that outlet. And I saw drag, and I was like, you know what? I could do this. I could totally freaking do this. And I was like, I'm going to perform. And it was Alexis Ryan at first.
Really?
Yeah, but then I had to, quote unquote, kill her off because she was kind of a bitch. I had to be taught a few things. And so Alexis Rain was born because my mother is Elise. God, not Elise. That's my sister. Sorry. Aaliyah Sky. And so rain falls from the sky.
Yep.
So anyways, And I had to work for the last name, which I was never given the last name because, anyways, I had already made a name for myself by the time that my drag mother was going to give me the name. But and now Alexis has been a part of my life for over the last 18 years.
Oh my gosh.
So it's been a long journey for that.
What did Alexis give you?
Oh my God, so much. So she didn't create these qualities that I lacked.
Mm-hmm.
What it was she basically amplified what qualities I already had. And that's why I talk about her in the third person, because she is me times 100. She is like, I'm confident. She's super confident.
Yeah.
I'm brave. She's super brave,
Yeah.
and her creativity, the creativity that came with it, the wit.
Yeah.
The quick wit, the one-offs where I can just, that comes from working the mic, and commanding an audience's attention. The humor, from my dark sense of humor to my vanilla sense of humor. She's helped develop that self-expression.
Yeah.
Drag gave me that room to grow those things. It became this place to explore identity and gender and expression, the same, like these, without the same constraints that society puts on us with those things. So in a lot of ways, I find it funny because she is a female and drag persona, but Alexis helped make me the man I am today. I would not be this guy sitting in front of a camera going, "Hey, let's talk about all this shit," if it wasn't for her. Yeah. She helped bring all of that out in me. So that's, I hold her in high regard.
Me too. And I love that.
Yeah.
That's so, it's beautiful to me, because I think people sometimes misunderstand that drag is just a costume, right? And there's a costume.
Yeah, there's a costume.
There's performance. There's art. There's glamour. There's humor. And there's probably a wig emergency.
There is always a wig emergency. Always.
Right? But it's also so much deeper than that.
Yeah.
And drag can be that place where parts of the self get to be free and finally just breathe, and a place where gender becomes play, art, power, commentary, because you have good commentary, and liberation, and a place where expression stops asking permission.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, and then just from that, more recently, I have found language for this other part of myself, which is, this is new for me and a new discovery. I mean, we're talking only a couple of months here, because I figured it out, so to speak, at Pride in June. And so we're only a month out from that. So it's gender fluid or gender queer, one of the two. I lean more towards gender queer. I still identify as a gay man. Yeah. That's the thing. I identify as a cisgender homosexual man.
Yeah.
But describing myself entirely male psychologically, emotionally, it's never felt completely accurate.
Yeah.
My internal experience has always been more androgynous. It is this blend of the masculine and the feminine. I don't subscribe so hard to that male female. I'm comfortable with both male and female pronouns. I'm comfortable with somebody going, "Hey bro," which I make fun of them. I mean, Tyler does it a few times and I'm like, "All right, bro," or it's like, "Hey girl," none of that. I don't care, because internally, there's that blend of it. And so I don't feel confined by traditional expectations of clothing or expression or these gender roles.
I'm not sure. I'm going to be honest. I'm not sure how I feel about labels, because I don't know what it is. I think it's just because I just love and accept everybody for who they are. Mm-hmm. But I also want to be very accepting and affirming of, if you have a label, I will 100% respect that. But for you, I feel like a label didn't create something new.
No.
it gave language to like something that was always there for you.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, identifying as, let's say, gay, genderqueer, pagan, or anything like that. It wasn't that. Oh my God, it's this new thing. Let me go try it out. I understand about the labels as well, but I don't really necessarily like labels either, because I think they put people in a box, and I think that causes issues. And I think people focus on the box too much and not the person. And so, but for me, I enjoy them because it's finally having language for something that has always been there.
Yeah.
It reflects the way I have always rejected this kind of rigid binary ideas of gender, and just wanting to exist authentically.
Same.
Like I don't, what, just use it all.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have to say he, she, her, I mean, use it all. I don't care. Like, I'm so fluid with all of that stuff. But I think genderqueer is the terminology that I'm falling more under for myself on that. So.
And I think that's really important when we talk about labels, right? Because labels are not everything. But sometimes labels gives you a mirror, and sometimes it gives you a community. And sometimes it gives you a way to say, this is not just me being strange or wrong. And this is me being human. And I feel like that's where labels are used correctly, where it's like, oh yes, I identify with that.
Yes.
It doesn't encompass all of me, but I do identify with that.
Yeah. But it can be tricky also, because people want these labels to be final.
They do. And I said this before. People want identity to be a receipt. You said this before, so please continue presenting yourself in that way forever so I can feel organized.
No, and that's just very customer service desk of them. Like that's all that is.
And we've talked about that. We're not very accepting of returns on the humanity complex or the human complexity, right?
Yeah.
But this is where social justice matters too, right? Because rigid gender categories are not neutral. They're shaped by patriarchy, misogyny, and I'm saying all the fucking trigger words. Yeah. Colonization, white supremacy. They're created by religion, law, medicine, and culture. Yeah. And many cultures have understood gender in more expansive ways than the binary categories that are enforced through colonization and Western systems. I grew up with Mahu, and it is a gender queer, combined, like two-spirit gender that we hold at a higher standard, even, and a higher level of spirituality, because they're connected to both masculine and feminine. And in American culture, so much pressure gets placed on performing gender correctly. What does that even fucking mean?
I don't know.
You have to be masculine enough, but mostly for the male gaze. And not like male gaze like you. I mean like male gaze,
the eyes looking at,
right? And you have to be feminine enough. Don't be too soft. Don't be too loud. Don't be too sexual. Don't be so confusing with your gender. Pick one. I hate that. So
I do too.
Don't make people uncomfortable. I think that's what it comes down to, right? Oh, yeah. And the deeper message is become readable enough for the system to manage you.
That's it. That's it. Become readable enough for the system to manage you.
I don't need to be managed.
Girl. I do enough managing in my life. I don't need, maybe I should let them know. Just kidding.
Right? You're like, wait.
Somebody else can manage me?
Yeah. But a part of being ourselves is refusing to make our humanity smaller, just so oppressive systems can categorize us more easily.
Yeah. Well, and that also connects back to family roles, because families can assign identities too.
And that's why I love systems, right? So dysfunctional family systems often assign those roles. When we talk about it, get my book out. I know it's here. We have those roles as the caretaker, the peacekeeper, the scapegoat, the golden child, the invisible child. Yep. The fixer, the responsible one. Who's the problem? Who's the one that never needs anything? And children often become those roles because those roles help keep the family emotionally stable.
Mhm.
And it's not because the role reflects who they are as a person. It's just that's just the easiest thing to be, to keep the peace.
Yeah, but then as adults, we can make the mistake that the role, or is that we can mistake the role for our personality.
Yeah. And I feel like healing is a process of like separating like survival from identity. And I feel
Mhm.
like that was really hard, and it's not easy because like authenticity can feel so dangerous to your nervous system. And if belonging like once required all of this self-abandonment, you just like you couldn't be yourself, you were too much, so you had to shut up and be quiet. And honesty can feel like a threat. Telling the truth can feel like losing everything. Setting a boundary can feel like you're betraying everybody. And in saying like this is who I am, it can feel like you're breaking all the rules that kept you safe in the first place.
Yep, because when people start changing, other people often react.
Usually. And they do. And they start saying things like, you've changed. We're supposed to, right?
Yeah.
And now you're selfish. Yeah, girl, because I'm taking care of myself first.
Mm-hmm.
Or you think you're better than me. I don't think I'm better than anybody, but cool, that's what you think. Or you're being brainwashed. You're in a cult. That's what I got. It's so culty. You're not yourself anymore. You're abandoning the family, or like you're confused. And again, that word, you're too much.
You're too much.
I fucking hate that.
Yeah.
And the painful irony in that is like some people will accuse you of losing who you are right when you're finally starting to figure yourself out.
Yep, that one hits. Yep.
It does. Because I feel like the system that benefited from your old role won't celebrate. They're not going to celebrate the freedom in it.
Yeah.
Because the freedom is yours. They loved you the most when you had no boundaries. They could
Mhm.
walk all over you.
Mhm.
And your boundaries now feel like a rejection. If people relied on you to be silent, your honesty is going to feel a hell of a lot like disrespect. And if people expected you to disappear beautifully, your visibility looks like a rebellion.
Disappear beautifully is such a phrase.
Because the expectation is fucking wild, right? And I want to say this again. This does not mean every person who struggles with your change is a horrible person. And it doesn't mean that you can't still love them. And those people can still love you and still be attached to a version of you that made their life easier.
Mm-hmm.
People can be confused, people are allowed to grieve, and people can need time. But their discomfort cannot be the only measure of your truth.
And that is the hard part.
It is. Because it often, that healing often requires tolerating the discomfort of disappointing people who benefited from the old version of you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why becoming yourself is not just cute. It can be costly. There's a hell of a lot of grief in it.
Mm-hmm.
And it can be super lonely. And it can also be sacred. It can be freeing, and it can be all of those things all at once. And I feel like that's the beauty in it.
Yeah. Well, and I want to talk about something that you talked about before we recorded, but also I've kind of slightly brought it up during my coming out story. You said there is just difference between deconstructing and constructing.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's like one of the biggest parts of just anything, life in and of itself, right? Because for a long time, healing can look like deconstructing family roles, deconstructing religion, deconstructing gender expression and expectations, deconstructing trauma responses, cultural narratives, and deconstructing the belief that being loved means abandoning yourself, and deconstructing the version of yourself that kept you alive but couldn't hold your whole life.
Girl, that's a lot of demolition.
I know it is. It's like emotional HGTV, but everyone is crying.
The budget is nervous system capacity.
Right? And we're always over budget. Oh my God. I could go on about HGTV because they're going to go find $1 million house and he raises Jackson chameleons and she's a teacher. But they have $1 million budget.
I don't watch HGTV anymore because I was traumatized in it in my previous marriage. So.
Oh my gosh,
That's
right?
all that was on the TV.
God.
All we watched was Home Renovation. I was like, oh my God.
And they were
I'm going to
always,
watch some drag queens.
and they were always over budget, right?
Yeah, oh, always,
yeah,
yeah.
always. But at some point, right, that question changes to not like just this whole of what do I need to let go of? It becomes, now that I've put some of this down
Mhm.
and I've knocked it all to the ground, what do I want to build?
That feels hopeful.
It is.
Better than a lot of all that demolition. It feels hopeful.
I mean, sometimes a sledgehammer on a wall is good
It's true.
therapy.
It's true.
Because
One of my favorite quotes is basically saying like everybody walked away whenever I was breaking down all the walls.
Yeah.
But nobody picked up the hammer to stick around to see what I was building.
Mhm.
So true.
Oh my God, so true. Right. Because becoming yourself isn't like just leaving or knocking things down. It's creating.
Yeah.
And it's asking, what does a life built on my morals, my values really look like? What relationships feel mutual and not just one-sided? What spirituality helps me feel alive? What work feels meaningful? And that was a hard one. And community, like what community feels honest, and what kind of love in community and other people lets me finally breathe? Or even like what kind of home, family, friendship, art, ritual, or future do I want to participate in building?
Yeah. Well, that connects to so much of what you and we are doing now, the podcast, counseling for you, House of Many Paths, like our spirituality, our dreams, like the way that you talk about maybe living somewhere completely different one day.
Yes.
Your little autumn cottage above a book. Oh my God. Yes, absolutely.
I know.
Absolutely.
Because I think all of those are expressions of the same deeper question of like, what does a life built from authenticity
Authenticity.
Yeah, thank you. Words are hard. Authenticity actually look like, right? Because it's not perfect. Nothing is ever perfect. There's not a life where nobody gets activated or triggered. And there's not a life where healing is ever complete. I mean, I actually do hope we just continue learning for the rest of our lives. And not everyone is going to be magically just regulated all the time. So we will continue learning.
That sounds so fake.
Right? Just poof, you're just
Poof,
regulated.
You're regulated. I wish.
It's really fake. And it's suspicious.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like you're oddly calm.
You're oddly calm. All the time.
All the time. And that's where I feel like I want a life where I'm not constantly betraying myself to belong. And a life where all spirituality has room, where all queerness has room, where all relationships have honesty, where work aligns with values, where joy is not treated like a threat, and where curiosity is not punished.
Hmm.
And that's a place, I feel like that's a place where we just continue to keep becoming. We continue to learn and live.
Well, yeah, I mean, that makes me reflect kind of on my own story too. I will say I value transparency over honesty in relationships more than anything. But we can get into that a whole nother time, the difference between transparency and honesty. But for my story, I mean, like drag's not deconstruction, it was construction.
Yeah.
You know, and Alexis gave me that place to build the confidence, expression, the humor, the bravery. You know, paganism again gave me the spiritual language that felt more like home for myself. Mediumship is becoming, but it is giving me a way to understand these experiences that I have carried for years. You know, genderqueer gives me that language of how I've always felt. You know, it's again a coming home. So it's not just I'm leaving this old thing. It's, you know, I'm building a life where these parts get to exist and coexist too at the same time.
Yeah. That's that blossoming, right? Not just getting out of poor soil.
Mhm.
It's finding, creating, and tending the soil where you can actually grow.
And that feels like a practice.
It is. And not everyone listening is there yet. And I don't expect that, right? Some people are still surviving. I'm here for that. And some people are still naming what happened, or they're still gathering the language, just trying to figure out how to like put it into words. And they're still deciding what's safe and who is safe enough to know them. And some people are still in the grief and they're still actively in those family systems and they're not able to leave. And some people are just not ready to say the truth out loud. And that counts too.
Yeah.
We do not shame the timeline. We do not shame the pace. We do not shame the person who's still trying to find the door. We sit there and we do it with them.
Well, and sometimes the path is not forward first.
It's
that's what a lot of people think. The path is not always forward first.
Yeah. Sometimes healing is not a path forward. It's a path backwards. What happened?
Yeah.
What happened so I can understand it so I don't have to ever live there again.
Yeah.
And and to understand what happened there in a deeper way of being able to build from where you came from, understanding what we inherited from, you know, our lineage and our past and our family, and understanding what we survived and being able to understand what was never yours to carry.
That's the important part for anybody who, like, for the people who feel stuck, what was never yours to carry.
Yeah.
You know?
Because going back to understand is not the same as going back to just like hang out there and stay there.
Yeah.
Sometimes we go back so we can finally leave with the actual truth.
Yeah. Well, I want to bring it back to social justice here, or well, I guess to the social justice piece here. Because when we talk about becoming yourself, it can sound very individual. Like it is just personal confidence or personal healing.
Yeah. And becoming is personal.
Mm-hmm.
It is.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not only personal, right? It becomes, no one becomes themselves outside of a system. And we're shaped by our family, our culture, our race, our gender, our sexuality, religion, even class, you know, disability, body expectations. I've changed 20 times before I sat down in this damn chair. Can encompass our history, land, money, education, healthcare, law, media, community. And I feel like in American culture, so much of that is shaped by all those trigger words that everybody loves, you know, the patriarchy, white supremacy, misogyny, colonization, heteronormativity, ableism, capitalism, and the pressure to be productive, pleasing, and easy to put in the little box.
Yep.
And no one fully escapes those systems because they're embedded everywhere, in schools, in our families, in churches, even workplaces and healthcare. beauty standards, everything we see as far as what beauty standards are, what gender expectations are, and whose anger is seen as justified or whose grief is believed, whose body is policed, whose spirituality is respected, and I don't know, whose culture is appropriated but not honored. Whose story gets treated as the universal story, or what identity gets treated as political. Dude, everything's political. Sorry.
Political.
I know nobody wants to admit that, but everything is political. And we do not want to make it about whose humanity requires an explanation.
Yeah. So when we say be yourself, we have to ask under what conditions.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So, like we talked about it before, like an indigenous native person recognizing with culture, ceremony, land, language, or identity after generations of colonization is navigating a totally different story than somebody simply trying a new hobby.
Yeah.
A Black woman naming her anger inside a culture that stereotypes Black women's anger is navigating a different risk than somebody whose anger has always been treated as reasonable. And a trans person becoming visible in a world legislating their body and even their whole existence is navigating more than personal confidence. A disabled person asking for access is in a culture obsessed with productivity is not just asking for convenience. And a queer person in a religious conservative family may not just be afraid of awkwardness. They may be afraid of losing home, community, safety, or belonging. And we cannot speak and do not want to speak for every story. But like I said, we can refuse to make just one story the default. And that's why I bring these things up.
Yeah. Well, it feels like a principle for the whole podcast.
It is. We're not trying to help people fit more comfortably in oppressive systems. We're trying to notice these systems and understand how they shaped us, what part they play, and be able to reclaim our humanity and ask what agency is possible now.
Agency without shame.
Agency without shame. Yeah. Systems without helplessness. Compassion without avoidance. It's so fucking easy to look away now.
Yeah.
Accountability without cruelty. And, maybe that's a part of becoming too. To become ourselves without making ourselves the only center of the room. Sometimes I feel like that's what I'm doing here, but I'm not. I want to tell me your stories. Come at me. Bring it. Let's put you on here. We want to be able to tell our truth without turning it into the only truth. We want to, be able to use labels when they help us find each other and loosen them when they start to become cages. We want to honor our own story while staying curious about stories that don't look like ours.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, as we wrap up, I keep thinking about how this episode started with coming out, but it really came more about or became more about becoming.
Yeah. And I think that's right, though. Coming out is one part of becoming. It's one way that the truth becomes visible. But becoming ourselves is ongoing. Sometimes that was for you. It was like the door that opened up to everything else. I feel like it was for me too. It was like coming out was just this door that opened up to everything else. And we become through those relationships we have, and we become through the grief of those relationships or things that we've lost. And we become through finding different kinds of love. And we become through bodies that change. And we become through that culture and community and through labels that help us and labels that we outgrow because we're allowed to. And we come through that spirituality, that intuition, that gut feeling, ancestors, dreams, questions, therapy, rupture and repair. And the truths we were not ready for until we actually were.
Oh, and sometimes the truth finds us before we go looking for it.
Yep. And the truth finds us. And at first, we may want to hide it and then argue with it a little bit. Really?
Mhm.
And we can dress up as something else. And then we may say, you know what? This is not me. No. And we slowly realize maybe it is. And then if there's enough safety, enough support, enough honesty, enough courage, or sometimes just enough exhaustion from pretending, we start listening. And coming out is not always becoming somebody new. Sometimes it's becoming more honest about who has been there all along.
And that feels like the bridge from the last episode
Mhm.
into this. Last episode was the self we had to become, and this episode is the self that starts coming forward.
Yeah. And I think that maybe becoming yourself is not about finding somebody you've never met. It's just about going back with enough compassion to finally bring home the person that has been there all along.
Yeah.
The child we knew, the teenager who felt just a little different, right? The mother underneath that role, the queer person under that performance, the spiritual person underneath all of the shame that came with it, the artist under the fear, the medium under the doubt, the person who wanted more but didn't know that they were allowed to want it.
Yeah, that feels like the hope.
I love hope.
Yeah.
It's always that light that's there, right? And not everybody has to be ready today. And not everybody has to come out today. And not everyone has to know the label to make the announcement, leave the relationship, leave the family, change the life, or explain the whole truth by Tuesday.
Tuesday remains unavailable.
It's opted out. But maybe today can become a beginning, right? And today is just noticing. Today is admitting something in me wants more, and that's okay. And it's letting yourself wonder what would grow if you were in better soil. And maybe it's just what am I deconstructing and what am I knocking down?
Mm-hmm.
What am I ready to build? And who's going to come hold a hammer with me?
Yep.
And maybe today is saying like, I don't know who I'm becoming yet, but I'm willing to listen.
Yeah. Yeah. And that feels like enough. Well, y'all, if this conversation resonated with you, we'd love to keep the conversations going. You can find Conversations with Mother on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Spotify, along with clips, reflections, episode updates, and future conversations. You can also follow along with House of Many Paths for more about the work, the people behind these conversations, and the community we're continuing to build together. And if you'd like to support the show, sharing episodes, leaving reviews, commenting, and engaging with the conversations genuinely helps more people find this space.
It's enough.
It is enough.
Curiosity is enough for today.
Yeah.
So thank you guys for sitting at the table with us today. I know today was long. We got off on a tangent and just kept going. But if this conversation brought something up in you, maybe you don't have to force an answer right away. Maybe just notice what truth has been trying to find you. What role feels too small now? What label gives you language? What label feels too tight? What grief comes with becoming you? And what soil are you trying to grow in? What are you ready to build? Coming out does not have to happen all at once. Becoming yourself does not have to happen perfectly. You're allowed to meet yourself in pieces. You're allowed to go back and understand where you came from and move slowly into that change. You're allowed to want love that feels like love and feels safe. And you're allowed to become somebody your past self did not have that safety to imagine. So however you love, however you heal, you're welcome here. From my house to yours, be well.
Bye.